talk a little bit about where you're from. Obviously, Rhode Island, but
Hmm.
what does Rhode Island mean to you as like a content creator?
Man, Rhode Island to me, you know, it's a double-edged sword because it's definitely the stereotypical example of where someone can lose inspiration because it's the smallest state in the country. So for those who don't know out there, I'm from the smallest state in North America, in the United States of America, it's Rhode Island. So out of the 50 original states, we are the smallest by a landslide. It's like no debated. Like there's nothing even really close when it comes to size wise. But, you know, it can make any creator kind of like, oh, and not just any. Let me just summarize it up. For the majority of the creators and throughout my childhood growing up, all the creators out of here would basically feel like they gotta leave. Like, oh, there's nothing here. I need to get out of here. But myself, I would say, especially in the past like 3 years, I've kind of refocused and felt more reinvigorated with a new definition of what being from Rhode Island is for me as a creator. And what I've done is basically just funneled all the energy that stereotypical people from here feel, like frustrations to leave, and I've turned it into like the complete opposite. I've learned how to basically just do what isn't done out here yet. If I see something online that's creative, like they have a podcast, people do podcasting, and I listen to podcasts every day, like constantly everywhere I'm going to. I'm listening to whether it's Charlemagne the God and Andrew Schultz, Brilliant Idiots.
Hmm.
Obviously Flagrant 2, Joe Budden podcast, Joe Rogan episodes. You know, I'm constantly listening to podcasts throughout I would say it's been like, yeah, probably like 5, 6 years now, every day, especially weekly at least, but definitely every day. So I was like, why is there not a podcast out here? I started it, created it, and now I've become the biggest podcast out here by a landslide, especially because I created the separation where it's like, okay, there's no podcast out here, but let me do one. If I do one, it has to match high quality, like content level of, a podcast that I already listened to, like a Joe Budden and Joe Rogan, at least my version of that. And I did that, visually it's great. The clips always go viral on TikTok and IG Reels like every day. It's pretty insane to even keep up with. So that's helped the growth of the brand and the podcast, but it's all from here, Rhode Island, smallest state in the country. And
Hmm.
that's a thing that it's a prime example of, being able to, manifest something that doesn't exist, creating it in a place where you don't see it existing, and, conquering that at the same time because you become this big fish in a small pond. I always say that phrase of,
Yeah.
everyone wants to go to LA, New York because you want to become something big, but everyone out there is always trying to become something big. So you're a small fish in a big pond. But when you're in the opposite situation, a a smaller, pond, you can become that big fish. Rhode Island's
Right.
literally the smallest thing in the country, so anything that someone does out here stands out right away. So I focus on the content creation. I've already done it without trying to when it came to the backseat, not even backseat, but sitting in the car reactions I still do, the car reaction, creating the car reaction content, and that always has good traction, especially when it comes to big artists, but there's not, especially in the recent years in the music industry, it hasn't been as like, constantly like a new album every week. It doesn't really happen, especially major artists. They really don't drop every week no more. They take big hiatuses, so that's made the reaction game kind of like not be as consistent. So I, instead of sitting back and being lazy throughout those times of like emptiness, I've filled now the channel with, even though it doesn't get crazy views, it's quality content. You go on it and you see it's quality content. So that's become the podcast, clips from the podcast. Um, and I was like, all right, that's one thing. I can keep this up consistently. I can do the podcast for the rest of my life. I started it. I know how to do it now, but I'm like, how else? What else can I do? So then, aside from the podcast, I'm like, all right, I already got the reactions. I got the podcast. It's out of Rhode Island. People know that. But I'm like, how can I embrace Rhode Island even more? The everyday random individuals. So I started doing street interviews similar to the NYC
Hmm.
Side Talk or the Billy on the Street, Billy Eichner, the famous white comedian. Billy on the Street, interviewing people on the street. or just stereotypical like CNN. I know Trevor Noah has someone, I forgot his name. There's always like these news stations always have someone walking in the street and just interviewing them. So
Mm.
me and my friend Edwin, he was like, "Yo, we should do content like that." And I was like, all right, let's do it. The idea was kind of to have him on, but he's shy. He gets very awkward and weird. I'm like, all right,
Yeah, I've
Edwin.
noticed.
Yeah, he's always like that. He's a tough cookie, but that's why I love him because he's always himself no matter what. Even though it's not the best for certain situations, he's always Edwin. So when it came to him, I'm like, all right. He planted that sort of like driving me to actually do it because he's like, oh, I want to do this. Let's do it because I'm in that mood now. Especially because YI left the channel, Eric left the channel. He's not on camera no more. So that made me, that was at the same time that I felt like I gotta embrace Rhode Island more. That happened. So I'm like, okay, let me just start new content. And then like if someone's saying something and it's like someone I love, one of my best friends, I'm gonna take it more serious. I'm not gonna just like, oh, try it and not do it. I'm gonna try it. It worked. We ran viral off the first time we did it. I think it was a PVD Fest. We ran viral locally. We ran viral
Yeah.
online, on Facebook, everywhere. I'm like, all right, I did it. Let me just keep doing it. And that's been amazing as well. So I try to like I can even be more consistent with that if I'm being honest. I can go to the Providence, Rhode
Hmm.
Island Mall, I could go to the hood. Eventually I'm gonna do that, but what I've just done now is done like Rhode Island events. So I'll go to like Providence. I did the Providence Festival, I did the Gay Pride Festival, I did the Rhode Island Comic Con. When there's something big, like notable, I'll try to do that to kind of just, I guess, for myself, create some sort of like structure. But at the same time, it's just basically going back to that fundamental thing of like, trying to realize like if Rhode Island's small, everyone feels like they have no inspiration. Why shouldn't I become that source of inspiration?
Hmm.
Because not for nothing, I felt like always locally, I've had something like people kind of gravitate towards me to not even like sound like what's it called? To not sound cocky or nothing, but just the idea of like the
No, talk
stereotypical
your shit,
kid.
bro. You're the biggest
So,
creator out of Rhode Island. Talk your shit. Talk your
yeah,
shit.
man, I definitely am. When it comes to like don't gas me up. I'll go too viral. But when it comes to like out here locally, like in school, I've always was the one that blended with both crowds. Because I blend with, I'm Dominican, but I also and I identify as black because I have Nigerian blood. Like I literally am 50% Nigerian African
Oh,
blood.
for real?
But yeah, 100%. Yeah,
Oh, I'm
it's just I
Nigerian.
had to
That's
like,
crazy. I had no idea.
yeah, I had to do my ancestry to get the factual, definition. But I just know, like, without prior growing up, I've always known, like, I've had to be, there's black Dominicans, there's white Dominicans, but especially in the East Coast, like, there's a sense of, like, even if you are a white Dominican, they still fall you into, like, the category of overall Dominican. But now, as I become an adult, I've specified, I know more about my culture or my bloodline. But regardless, nonetheless, I've always been, universal. I've always had African friends, Asian friends, Spanish friends, so I always didn't have an issue with that. And then I always was like a part of like the cool crew, but I never was drinking or smoking, so I never got too involved. And then the stereotypical nerds, I've always had friends like that were in the chess club, etc. So I had like an overall like sort of like popular feeling in school. Like I literally won, what was it called, the prom king or whatever that is. Like I won that from people voting. So certain things like that always happen. But I was like, how can I turn this into something that's like content and still have a moral to it? Because I never was too much of like a class clown. Like I'll joke and I
Mm-hmm.
know how to like get girls' attentions, like making them laugh, etc. But I never pushed the needle. Like I never tried to be like a boot gang or like like when people get disrespectful and like is like you get too like you offend someone in public or like do weird things. Like I was never like that. Like I always was universal. I was very close to teachers. Like I always loved teachers. Even though I'll get mad at them, I'll still have like a friendship with them. I'll hang out with teachers after school, after class, and just talk about life. So I always had this sort of thing, right? But then how could I, take it to another level? So people already fucked with me, they respected me locally. How can I make this actually work on social media? And naturally it's worked. So it's like I become sort of like a spokesperson because I can, have a conversation with a politician one week, literally the mayor of my city, and then the next week I can have a model from OnlyFans talking about she drunk piss and like she like loves drinking piss, and it's like I have a huge range of possibilities because at the end of the day I also don't judge no one, and I feel like people feel comfortable with that. They know like, I make fun of myself. Like if someone were to judge me, I'm already judging myself before they judge me. So it's like it doesn't affect me. Like I've grown very thick skin. So just having that, applying it to my city and embracing everything I do in my city, I think it makes people feel proud. Like I think I've been a very prominent figure to make people out of here feel proud. Like literally
Hmm.
millionaire athletes, stars that are from here haven't really embraced being from here until I embraced being from here. Now I've sort of made it like a cool thing, and I really am proud of that because no matter what, God forbid if I were to die tomorrow, I feel like that's my legacy, especially when it comes to where I'm from. My
Hmm.
home is like people can never take that away from me. Like, yo, he really made it where it's like proud and like cool to be from Rhode Island, the smallest state in the country. And especially to the people from here, at least if they know that, I think it's a major thing because I'm not gonna really not ever be here. I feel like I could do so much more things. Like I have so many things planned. I haven't really announced nothing, but I'll say it here. Like I have things like I want to do like a dating type of like content on the YouTube channel, similar to like how
Like a fresh and
Kid
fit.
Sid, you know what I'm saying? Like Kid Sid, what was the other men, the people out of UK, Sidemen, the Sidemen, right?
Yeah,
KSI and them.
yeah. I
So
was
they
thinking
have
like
like
more so fresh and fit, actually.
that could work as well. That could kind
Yeah.
of work as well. But I'm thinking more of like almost like a series where it's like blind dating, speed dating, but in like the studio, like having them come in, like setting up certain like almost like a game show type of thing where I
Mm.
can have literally my friends that are single or like even individuals throughout the city who are interesting. Even that girl that was on talking about she drunk piss, etc. Having like men kind of like come and kind of not fight for her love and like a quick like turn into like a 15-20 minute episode on YouTube, and it's like Rhode
Mm.
Island love and like Rhode Island speed dating, something like that. And I feel like that can work really well locally, and if it works locally, I know it can get traction online. You
Yeah.
know, because the city's really on the rise. Like I'm really proud to be from here, but now more than ever, like everyone is really on the rise. You have people, you know, on every spectrum. You have athletes, you have social media, reality TV show stars now because we have that girl. She's from Providence. Her name is Biggie. She is like becoming big online now, and she's gonna become like one of the biggest contestants on the baddies. It's like a bad girls club that they have on Zeus Network. Zeus Network has like TV shows. They got that new one with Christian and Blueface, but they got another one that's dropping after this. Like I think next month with it's called Baddies West or something. So there's a girl from Providence on there,
Mm.
and everyone's kind of known of her locally, but now she's on there and she's gonna definitely go viral because she has like the attention of like Natalie Nunn and like Krishan on social
Mm.
media, and they always like have their like
Okay.
keep sneak previewing like scenes from the show. So it's like, oh, I already know that she's gonna be dope to have on the podcast, but that's like another example of like the city just getting highlighted and spotlighted more and more, and it's a beautiful thing, man. But I'm honored to become naturally the sort of like I guess the platform for the state, for the city, and also just even individually like the source. Like even my Instagram stories or like my tweets when it comes to local news, like people always go to it to get like what's happening or like they hit me up to repost something important that's happening.
Hmm.
So it's an amazing thing. Like I really hope and feel like I feel like a lot of people should do this, should kind of like take this blueprint of
Yeah.
embracing where they're from, their city and their town, especially like if it's like a town that no one's heard of, even more. Like
Hmm.
I feel like people need to do this